Let me tell you, sometimes the Madoka fandom is a little weird when it comes to naming their villains. I remember back in the day there were people who villainized Sayaka for how she acted towards Madoka, or said that Junko Kaname was a bad mother, and even today, Hitomi still gets hate because she apparently ruined Sayaka's relationship with Kyosuke. But there seems to be one who stands the test of time in terms of being seen as either uninteresting or straight up just bad. Why point out disdain towards the show's actual antagonistic force when we have a crippled, socially isolated, and mentally ill kid instead? Wait, what? Yeah, remember when Kyosuke was genuinely hated in the community? Yes, this really was a thing. I don't think you guys understand how foolish it is to still hold this stance in the Big 26. We've matured enough to realize how nuanced Kyoko is, and to not just see mommy is there for shock value and nothing else, so why can't we move on from ignoring or outright hating Kyosuke? He didn't do anything wrong, but the way some of the fandom used to talk about him, you'd think he hurt Sayaka and stole Madoka's lunch money or something. It's kind of crazy, actually. For a series that has so much depth and material to explore, we still somehow ignore a very significant part of the original show because we don't like him. I mean, I get it if you have Kyosuke as your least favorite, sure, that's fine, but that doesn't mean he has no value. In fact, what if I told you he's secretly the greatest character in the show and will have a resurgence in Walpurgisnacht Rising where he will save the day? Uh, okay, obviously not. But the observation I'm actually going to share about him is still pretty impactful, I think. Kyosuke's role in the narrative is primarily to serve as Sayaka's call to action. His poor state of health is what pushes her to take Kyubei up on its word and become a magical girl. Without Kyosuke, the Sayaka we are shown may have never become a magical girl. The only other major thing we learn specifically about Kyosuke is that he was a violinist before the accident that damaged his arms. Of course, we also see that his and Hitomi's relationship later serves as a significant point of contention for Sayaka when she becomes jealous and fails to confess her feelings to him first. But then in Rebellion, we see that even his relationship with Hitomi doesn't seem to be working out all that well, as his time as a violinist now takes his attention away from her, at least until the conflict is resolved by the Holy Quintet. Though more specifically, it is handled by Sayaka comforting Hitomi and sending her back with Kyosuke. Something odd has always stood out to me when it comes to Kyosuke. If he is so unimportant, then why is the first major conflict of Rebellion specifically relationship troubles between him and Hitomi? With hindsight, we know the majority of the movie is inside of Homer's labyrinth, and as such, just about everything in it happens because of Homer's mental influence. So, why is she thinking so deeply about Hitomi and Kyosuke having a failing relationship? I was talking with my friend Evelyn about this a week or so ago, and let me tell you, when I had the realization about what Hitomi's nightmare might actually mean, it blew my fucking mind. Trust me, you guys are gonna love it too, but I'm not gonna jump ahead to the answer first because, unlike with Evelyn, I'll need my other observations about Kyosuke to convince you of my theory regarding the nightmare. We really need to ask ourselves just what is the deal with Kyosuke? Like, sure, that might seem simple at first. He's a young violinist who hits an immense roadblock when he loses the ability to use his left hand, ends up feeling isolated during his time in hospital recovering, is friends with Sayaka, Hitomi, and Madoka since they were all young, and after Sayaka's wish, he starts playing again and dates Hitomi. I mean, what more can we possibly learn from this? Nothing, right? Wrong. I need you guys to pay attention to a few very important points. Kyosuke's pairings are with Sayaka and Hitomi. Kyosuke is not merely a violinist, but a prodigy of the instrument with many eyes on him. He gets back to where he is after Sayaka makes her wish, and Sayaka's love for him is one-sided. Let's pin that and get back to it shortly. As first, we are going to take a detour to talk about Homer's connection with Sayaka and Hitomi. The first video in this week-long series already covered my thoughts on Sayaka and Homer's connections rather in depth, so I'm going to try to focus on the ones that are most relevant to this discussion only. In a lot of ways, Sayaka mirrors certain aspects of Homer incredibly well. They can both be incredibly rigid and straightforward regarding people or things that are less important to them, especially to each other, but of course, they mellow out and drop everything when it regards someone who's close to them. Despite both having insane perseverance, they more often than not succumb to outside forces even after all the work they put in, being forced to give up when it's clear they can't possibly do any more than they already have. Crucially, Sayaka and Homura share a link nobody else does in that they both have transformed into witches and survived the process with the intervention of the Law of Cycles. Now, technically, Madoka counts here too, but it's not like Madoka slaying Gretchen is the exact same as her bringing Sayaka or Homura out of their labyrinth up into the Law of Cycles. And while Nagisa and Sayaka are alike in this aspect, she's only made a main character long into Rebellion's runtime. This is a link that we see shared between Homura and Sayaka as main characters. But deeper than all of this, there is one more very profound thing which links Homura and Sayaka, and it is that they are the only members of the Holy Quintet whose wishes are related to romantic love. We will get back to this as well, so let's pin that and move on to the parallels of Hitomi and Homura. At first, you might ask how Hitomi could possibly parallel Homura, but with a bit of digging, we can actually make a compelling case for this idea. Firstly is the fact that both Homura and Hitomi are outsiders to Madoka's friend circle. Now, you probably hear that and think I sound insane because one of the few things we know about Hitomi is that she's friends with Madoka and Sayaka. However, let's really take a peek into that dynamic, shall we? While it's true that Hitomi is their friend, she is often an outsider to their deeper interpersonal conflicts, especially starting in the second episode after the girls have met Kyubei and can speak telepathically. But even in the first episode, you can see this level of detachment immediately as her hobbies seem to be too much for people like Sayaka and Madoka who aren't as used to the type of lifestyle that Hitomi's rich parents encourage. Perhaps one of the bigger things which points towards Hitomi being an outsider to them is in relation to her role in the story. Despite apparently being close friends with Sayaka, her crush on their childhood friend Kyosuke seems to come as a surprise to her. It's possible that Hitomi's crush formed recently, but we can clearly see that Hitomi understands Sayaka's feelings. So to me, the fact that Sayaka can't do the same for Hitomi is a result of this type of outsider status that Hitomi has now. Something else I want to point to as evidence for this comes from the opening credits of Beginnings and Eternal. This frame shows the girls and Kyosuke when they were kids, and we see Madoka close by Sayaka and Kyosuke who are facing forward. But far behind them in the background, looking away, is Hitomi. The very opening shows her being detached from this group of friends, despite it being well established that they are close. Both Hitomi and Homura are fiercely devoted to the person they are crushing on, and I'd argue this point is actually stronger in this case than it is for Sayaka. While it's certainly true that Sayaka's wish was focused on Kyosuke, once Hitomi's feelings are brought up, her whole character arc revolves around wanting to be with the boy, and it becomes the focus in later material too. It's in relation to Kyosuke where we see her at some of her most vulnerable moments, not even when she is affected by HN Ellie's curse. Hitomi and Homura also both hold themselves to a sort of higher degree than everyone else, at least when it comes to how they present themselves. Hitomi is part of a rich socialite family and so naturally projects this type of upper-class image as a result of her upbringing, while Homura fits into this type of upper-class image by way of forcing herself to look more important. As a result, the people around Homura fully believe her to be this sort of rich upper-class student. Alright, so we have made a strong case for both Sayaka and Hitomi being narrative mirrors of Homura in some way. What does this have to do with Kyosuke? We're getting there, don't worry. In fact, let's go straight to Rebellion's use of Hitomi and discuss the nightmare. When we catch up with Hitomi again in Rebellion, we learn she is feeling left behind by Kyosuke, who is spending more time practicing violin than with his now girlfriend. We don't know the extent of this supposed neglect, we don't know how long it's been going on for, if Hitomi is even in the right, or really anything about it. We just know how Hitomi feels. And how she feels is angry enough to alter the space around her and become a nightmare which the Holy Quintet needs to fight and who Sayaka needs to comfort. I want to ask a question of you all. If Sayaka and Hitomi are meant to parallel Homura narratively in some way, what does it mean then that the resolution of this scenario, which begins with Hitomi feeling abandoned by Kyosuke, is brought about by Sayaka comforting Hitomi, one Homura mirror comforting the other? I'll let you sit on it for a bit and really think about where this is going, because as far as I'm aware, nobody else has ever made this specific connection before. So, like I said earlier in the video, Kyosuke's role in Rebellion and the Hitomi nightmare have always confused me. It just seems so out of place given what we know about the fake city labyrinth. Let me reiterate this. Everything in the movie, save for a brief window of time at the very end, is inside of Homura's labyrinth, and everything inside the labyrinth reflects Homura's psyche and is influenced by her. So, why is she making a scenario regarding Hitomi and Kyosuke having relationship issues? Well, here's the revelation that made me add this video to the itinerary. It is because Kyosuke is a narrative mirror of Madoka. Let's break this down. Before his life-changing accident, Kyosuke was seen as a musical prodigy and was likely expected to become a professional player. Of course, what ultimately ends up happening is he becomes bedridden and fully believes he will not be capable of anything now that he's lost the use of his arm. Of course, Sayaka, who has romantic feelings for him, doesn't want him to believe this and defiantly tells him that he's wrong on multiple occasions. Sayaka sacrifices her one wish to become a magical girl just to heal him, but Kyosuke can't possibly be thankful of her. He is too overwhelmed by the support of others that he doesn't even realize she has feelings for him, and it remains entirely one-sided. In regards to Hitomi, while he does begin to date her, Kyosuke's main passion is playing the violin, and so as a result of pouring more time into practice, he ends up seemingly abandoning his girlfriend, leaving her in a state of anger as a result. We know that Madoka used to be far more outgoing, both in the anime's depiction of the first timeline and in Drama CD1's version, but after Homura becomes attached to her and starts to reset time, Madoka's personality and capability begins to worsen to the point of self-deprecation, where she believes herself to be useless. Homura never allows Madoka to say such demeaning things about herself and tries to convince her she is significantly more important than she believes. Homura's entire story is about how she sacrificed herself to become a magical girl strong enough to protect Madoka, and continues sacrificing herself every time she loops back to the start of the month. All the while, Madoka can't possibly know or understand the scope of Homura's sacrifices. When they're actually able to be together, it's only for a brief period of time, as Madoka eventually becomes the Law of Cycles and leaves Homura as the only person in the universe who even remembered she existed. This trauma eventually manifests as the Nutcracker Witch's Labyrinth. To me, the reason Homura's psyche manifests a conflict between Hitomi and Kyosuke is not because it's random or because it's a way to get the two into the film. They have a clear narrative reason for being there. They represent what Homura feels. Hitomi is seen in her bedroom. Her nightmare manifests from a place of rest. In the real world, Homura is laid to rest in the incubator's containment field in order for them to observe the labyrinth. Homura's goal is eventually to reunite with Madoka, which we see visualized as Madoka descending from the heavens to take Homura away after she is comforted. In a very similar way, the resolution of Hitomi's nightmare sees the girl comforted by Sayaka before ascending to reach Kyosuke. Maybe you see this and you're not really convinced. One time is not proof of anything after all, right? Hey, I agree, which is why it's a great thing that this is the second occurrence of this type of resolution. Madoka Magica Portable is my favorite piece of media in the franchise to comb through because it has a lot of narrative value we still haven't properly uncovered or spoken about. We used it to very convincingly make the case for Chidori's appearance in Walpurgisnacht Rising, and we're going to use it again to once more prove that Kyosuke is meant to parallel Madoka. Portable features a more comedic bonus route where you can drastically alter certain scenarios, and one in particular is the love triangle between Sayaka, Hitomi, and Kyosuke. Weirdly enough, Homura helps to encourage Hitomi to have a healthier conflict with Sayaka over the matter, and what ends up happening is that the pair duel for Kyosuke's affection. First of all, did you guys catch that this is a fairly surface level reference to Revolutionary Girl Utena? The Magica Quartet is no stranger to making callbacks to Utena, but this one quickly became my favorite when I realized it. Duels are a core part of the narrative of Utena, where duelists fight for the hand of the Rose Bride, and the winner has complete control over her. That's not quite the same here, but it's clear to see where this clash gets its inspiration from. Kyosuke doesn't have a say in the matter, much as the Rose Bride has no autonomy outside of what her fiance says. Obvious Utena reference aside, Sayaka wins after they have a back and forth and leaves to go see Kyosuke once Hitomi gives her blessing. The aftermath is where things get really interesting. First, we have Homura comforting Hitomi. If we keep in mind the idea of Hitomi being a mirror to the side of Homura who feels isolated from Madoka, then in effect, we can read this as Homura comforting herself and trying to part ways with the idea that she needs Madoka in her life to be happy. But what about Kyosuke in this version of the conflict? Well, we actually learned some interesting details about him from this route. For one, we learn that it's not just obliviousness that prevents him from admitting any kind of feelings towards Sayaka, but a belief that because she loves stronger and more capable figures akin to superheroes, he thinks he wouldn't be her type. He gets too embarrassed to actually say what he feels about her. When he actually does learn what happened, he's amazed and boosts Sayaka's self esteem as a magical girl, but harbors a deep guilt for making her waste her miracle on him. To me, this really mirrors Madoka in some significant ways. One of the first points of personal conflict we learn about Madoka is that she believes herself to not be desirable enough to even receive love letters like Hitomi does, which prompts Junko to tell her to act like she is more desirable. We know Madoka looks up to figures like Mami, her mother, and eventually Homura, but never lets herself admit any kind of strong feelings unless pushed. Her entire existence, too, is what keeps Homura going. Yeah, so I don't know if the resolution to this is as mind blowing to you guys as it was to me when I was talking to Evelyn about it, but I think this observation reveals something pretty clear. We're not done peeling back the layers of Madoka Magica. And every time you think you know it all, there's probably something else hiding under the surface. It makes you wonder just how many more observations and realizations can we come to just by looking at some overlooked parts of the franchise? We took the single most ignored character in the fandom and was able to determine he might be part of a larger web of characters who continue to teach us more about Madoka and Homura. Not just that, we took a part of Rebellion that most only look at and either assume it means nothing to the overall plot or only has surface level meaning and found it to be an important reflection of the movie's central protagonist. Who else are we ignoring and what else are we overlooking? Maybe someone out there is sitting on an explosive piece of info that can recontextualize something in a drastic way. Anyway, I'll see you guys tomorrow for the fifth day in our countdown to Walpurgisnacht Rising. Thanks for watching.